All right, everyone, Marco Palmero, founder of Ulysses in Dubai. In this video, we're gonna be talking about some technical element of deals and acquisitions, small business acquisitions, big acquisitions, it doesn't really matter. And this is not gonna be legal advice, but it's gonna be my personal experience going through these processes and seeing what are the things that are generally very helpful for buyers when acquiring a business. And we're going to be talking in specific about two things. The first is exclusivity, which is something that comes before the deal is executed. And then we're going to be talking about non-competes, which is something that is necessary after the deal closes. So let's jump into these two concepts and let's talk about why are they so helpful for buyers when going through a small business acquisition. Now, if we were talking about exclusivity, we literally describe the process of creating a safe environment for buyer and seller to interact and get that transaction done. And the point of exclusivity is that it creates a space where nobody else is allowed to step into the negotiation arena and send an offer to that particular business. Now, you might be wondering, why is that so important? Well, because after a preliminary offer is sent out and accepted by a seller, there is a due diligence period and a negotiation period that is necessary for the business to be sold. And this period of time can be long, can be short, but the point is, during this time, each buyer invests quite a lot of time, resources, and efforts in analyzing that particular asset. And it is important for the buyer to protect this time and resources by having some sort of exclusivity so that he can avoid that, 1 week before the deal closes, another buyer comes in and says, I'm gonna pay more, and the seller decides to sell it to somebody else. Now, you might be saying, well, that it's not necessarily helpful for both sides, but in reality, exclusivity helps both sides because it's a commitment for the buyer to really dive deeper into this deal and get it done by the end of the time frame. And for the seller, it should be a reassurance that this buyer is committed in getting the deal done. And so it's an advantage for both sides. It really creates a safe space or a room where only two parties are discussing and nobody else can influence that discussion. Now, generally speaking, exclusivity, at least from my perspective, what I've seen we put into letter of intent, exclusivities are included after the first offer is put out. So it's like a period of time that is necessary from the first time the offer is accepted down to the closing of the deal. Now, you might be wondering, what is the time of exclusivity that buyers want to have? It really depends, to be frank with you. Generally speaking, if I have to share my personal experience, the longer the better, simply because things go wrong in a deal and timelines get stretched quite a lot of times. And so even if you budget for a certain exclusivity time, you might need a lot more, especially if you're getting banks involved and other institutions to help you finance the deal, because they might need extra time and you're ready to roll, but the deal is still going to be dragged along for a long period of time. So long story short, generally speaking, depending on the deal, we like to put into our LOIs like 90, 120 days exclusivity, which from my perspective, should always be renewable. So in case something goes wrong, both sides should have the ability to sit down and extend that period, provided they can show that they made huge progress in closing that transaction and they're just missing, let's say, a couple weeks or 1 month to finalize the deal. Exclusivity, from my perspective, is fundamental, especially in a market like the UAE that is very vibrant. A lot of buyers are coming in every single day, and not all of them might necessarily be serious about buying a business. But if a seller is not savvy enough to understand it, he might start to go around and try to get the best deal out of every possible buyer, without respecting the exclusivity of the deal. I've seen that happening many times, not only in business deals, but also in real estate, for example. I saw properties get sold to another party, literally 24 hours before another deal was supposed to close. So exclusivity really protects both sides, and it really facilitates the process of getting to that purchase and sales agreement signature. Now, let's move on with the non-compete element. What is a non-compete anyway? Well, a non-compete is substantially an agreement that gets signed with the past owner that prevents him from operating in a certain geography within a certain niche for a certain amount of time. And why is that used in small business acquisitions? Well, the answer is quite simple. Many small businesses do rely on the trust and reputation of that particular business owner. In many cases, some business might also be run by that guy. As a consequence, that guy has a high level of influence on all the customers and the entire business as a whole. Now, as the guy exits the business, of course, he might stay for a transition period, but after some period of time, you're going to be having him go out and you're going to handle all the customers yourself. Now, what will happen if this guy had the ability to set up a shop in front of you or close by and just start talking with all his past customers and ask them to come to his new place? Most of these people will likely go with him because they trust him, they build a relationship for a long time, and that will kill your acquisition literally in a matter of months. And that is, of course, something that you always want to avoid. And non-compete enable you to do exactly that. I mean, it is simply a matter of saying, okay, you sold us this assisted living facility, for example. You're not going to set up an assisted living facility in the country for the next 2 to 3 years. This is fairly acceptable and, frankly speaking, fair for both sides, because if the guy is so much interested in setting up another business in the same place, then he's probably playing a soccer game to sell you that business, dump it, and then steal all your customers. And you shouldn't really pursue that acquisition in total honesty. So my point is, non-competes are very helpful. They're generally included in the purchase and sales agreement. It's just a section of it. And of course, talk with your legal advisors about it. I'm not a legal expert, but the point is, I do see the value in non-competes by, a factor of 1,000. Really, they're very, very helpful, especially again in small businesses, because a lot of the effort and trust in a reputation lies with the person, with the owner. And even if it's not involved in the day-to-day interaction with the guys, with the clients and patients, he's still going to be the one that moves the needle if he decides to, set up shop literally in front of you. And so you want to avoid that. I want to avoid that at all costs. And I think these two elements really enable both sides to have a safe play in a safe environment when it comes to due diligence, deal execution, transition, and a change of management. So these are two topics that I think are very interesting. What do you think about exclusivity and non-compete? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.